So it's not about charging what you're worth. It is about charging based on the value associated with the solution you bring to the table for the person who's been unsuccessful at solving that problem on their own. Because no one could afford me if I was charging my worth. I would be like $1 billion an hour and have no clients, right? So we have to learn how to separate our service from our identity. You are priceless, but your work is not.
Imagine making the next big investment in your business without worrying about how you'll secure the capital to do it. Every day you're putting in the work. You clock in at your job, you stay up late to work on your business, you handle your family responsibilities, but hard work isn't enough to create financial freedom. Here's why so many entrepreneurs still feel stuck. Business credit approvals keep slipping through your fingers. The advice that you've been given doesn't match the results. And you've invested in yourself, but without having the right structure, it hasn't paid off. It's not that you're not capable, it's just that the path that you've been given is broken. That's why I created the Fast Track to Capital. It's a proven framework that entrepreneurs are using to boost their credit so that lenders can trust them, structure their business so that banks see them as credible, and access $50,000 to $100,000 in business credit so they can finally act on opportunities. This isn't about working harder. It's about applying the same structure that wealthy entrepreneurs have been using for years. So if you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and actually move forward, click the link above or below this video to secure your spot in the free masterclass, and I'll see you on the other side of success.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Marvin Francois Show, your #1 source for all things business, finance, and investing. And today is a very special day because our guest today is an Inc. 5000 CEO, entrepreneur, investor, coach, public speaker, wealth mentor, and business growth strategist extraordinaire. She's the founder of Incredible One Enterprises, a consulting firm dedicated to helping entrepreneurs package, price, and position their expertise to build businesses that scale with grace and not grind. She's also the visionary behind the Move to Millions method, a transformational framework that challenges hustle culture and shows entrepreneurs how to grow with both profit and peace of mind. And whether she's coaching entrepreneurs on how to scale from 6 to 7 figures and beyond, speaking on stages all across the globe, or helping business owners normalize wealth as a birthright, her mission remains the same: to show entrepreneurs that true success is measured not only by millions earned, but in impact, freedom, and faith fulfilled. And today, she's here to do more of the same. Ladies and gentlemen, from Wilmington, Delaware, I'm here with the one, the only, Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon. How are you?
I'm good. Can you come with me everywhere?
I got you. We can definitely make it happen.
That girl sounds good.
Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am so good. Thank you for having me.
100%. I'm excited for this conversation. It's definitely going to be a fruitful one. I always try and find individuals like yourself that are powerhouses and aren't new to this, but true to their field of expertise. And, very few come up as well as you do. So I know that this is going to be a very fruitful conversation. Obviously, I did a solid job introducing you, but nobody knows Darnyelle better than the woman herself. So for those who are unfamiliar, let's get them familiar. Who exactly is Darnyelle Jervey Harmon?
I am God's favorite.
Okay.
I am a wife and a daughter and a sister. I'm a woman who understands the call on her life, the anointing that she was granted, and the power that she packs when she enters the room. From the moment I open my mouth, your whole life is about to change. That's who Darnyelle is. And just a little icing on the cake, my name means the secret place where dreamers go to dream.
Powerful. Let's unpack that a little bit because, we see this vibrant and radiant, successful woman that's sitting on the couch today, but I know that the path for you to get here was not linear. I'm sure, you had to take some lumps and bumps along the way. So let's go back a bit, as far back as you would like. What did life for you look like before the successful woman that we see sitting on the couch today?
Yeah, I just heard Langston Hughes in my ear. Life for me ain't been no crystal stair, okay? So I'm the product of 2 drug-addicted turned crack-addicted parents. I was born in the projects of Wilmington, Delaware. As the saying goes, we didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Both of my parents, I believe that they did the best that they could with what they had. And they taught me, reinforced for me, that I would have to work twice as hard for half as much, and I should be grateful for everything that I was given. I'm grateful that even with those lessons, those limiting beliefs, And that undercurrent trying to score my life, God saw enough in me. I think about Marvin Sapp. He saw the best in me.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, he gave me glimpses of abundance even at an early age so that I would have enough of a vision to hold until it could actually become my reality, that there was more available and that I was created for so much more than I was born into. I think God chose the family that I was born into to demonstrate the power that he truly wields if we are willing to come into alignment and to surrender with him. And I'm also a belief barrier breaker, right? My whole life, I've been defying odd after odd after odd because I know that who I am and what I've been through, all of those things are really just to be an indication for other people of what's possible if they would keep showing up for themselves every single day.
There was something you said in that I thought was interesting. You cite your troubled beginnings not as a excuse, but almost as like a launch pad to get you where you are today. And you talked about, you feel as though the reason God put you in that was to kind of find alignment in him. What did that process look like of, coming from an environment like that, but still being able to find your calling and God's purpose in your life from that season going on to the next?
Yeah, honestly, it's a decision, right? And you're absolutely right. I am not a victim. Nothing happened to me. Everything happened for me.
Right.
And because I've done my work, I recognize that everything that happened, it was transformational and it was part of the transmission that allows me to be able to sit here today, right? I say all the time, I didn't wake up like this. And I also recognize that every single thing that I've been through is purposeful. And was it all sunshine and rainbows? Absolutely not. I mean, we could spend probably 3 podcast episodes going through all the things, right? And we'll get into as many of those as you'd like. And why? Like, who cares? Like, at the end of the day, like, we all have an opportunity to be the hero in our story that leads other people to recognize the things that they've been through. They are also an opportunity for them to rise up and be a hero. So I could sit here and woe is me and have everybody feel sorry for me about what I've been through, or I can take the seat that is the seat of power and say, you know what? Yeah, I was born here. I'm one of 7. I'm the only one who graduated from high school of my mother's children, right? Like, I could talk about all of that, but what good does it do at the end of the day if I'm unwilling to allow the success clues that come out of the journey fuel someone else so that they can avoid some of the mistakes and the missteps that I made?
So coming from those kind of beginnings, how exactly did you find yourself stumbling into the world of business? Because it doesn't sound like you were in an environment that was bred for it, right? So
well, my brother was a drug dealer, so there was entrepreneurship.
That's a form of business.
We're clear,
That's
right?
a form of business. Yeah.
I honestly, when I was in the 8th grade, in junior high, about to go to college, I remember I probably dream all the time, but I remember very few dreams. And so every dream that I recall is significant. And so when I was in the 8th grade, I had a dream that my hair was back in a bun and I had on a suit. Today, I would tell you that it is a Brooks Brothers suit, right? But I had on a suit and I had a briefcase and I was going to do business. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I actually thought I was going to be an attorney, primarily because teachers would put on every report card, Darnyelle talks too much, right? She should only speak when she's spoken to. And I remember my dad and one of my dad's really good friends saying so many times, you got to find a way to get paid for as much as you run your mouth, right? And so at that point in time, all that I thought and knew that to be was to be an attorney, because then I could get up and I could say my stuff and I could make a lot of money, because I was clear, I was not going to be a teacher or have any job where the amount of money in my bank account was going to be a question. That was not an option. And so that's kind of where it started. And I started when I graduated from college. I had gotten into law school, and I think of it now as a God wink, but sometimes it's kind of embarrassing to say this. I got into Georgetown Law. They didn't give me any money. Now, I went my undergraduate degree, full scholarship.
Dope.
Right? And so Georgetown did not offer me 1 penny towards my legal degree. And so I decided not to go, because I was like, well, who's going to pay for this? I never even thought, Marvin, about a student loan. Okay. So I was like, okay, I'm not going. So I guess that means I'm going to go get a get a job. And so I started working in corporate America. And I was there for a total of 12 years. Within 3 years, I had progressed and gotten promoted to vice president in the organization. And I had a natural knack for business. And then I woke up one day in 2004. I call that, my Keith Sweat moment, when something just wasn't right in my spirit. And I quit my job. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was willing to bet on myself. And if it didn't work, I had an MBA, I was marketable, I'd be able to get a job. But I wouldn't know if I had what it took without all of the constraints that we sometimes have that hold us back from chasing our dream of entrepreneurship. I didn't have children. I wasn't married. I didn't have anything I needed to be responsible for. So if there was ever a time, it was when I was 26 years old, that I would take the plunge and see if I could actually be successful as an entrepreneur.
So you get the opportunity to go to Georgetown Law. Don't get a full ride there. Didn't explore student loans. You then go straight into corporate. You climb that corporate ladder fairly quickly, and then you say 2004 is essentially where you decide, like, okay, I'm going to take a step away from this and then go all in on business. Was that process your early stages of entrepreneurship? Paint that picture for me. Was it one where you came in guns a-blazing, money's coming in ever so abundantly, or did you have to take a couple of lumps along the way and be like, oh, this is business?
No. So I quit my job 2004. I didn't know what I was going to do. So while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I sold Mary Kay Cosmetics. I ended up becoming a pink Cadillac sales director in Mary Kay, which is a big deal. Only 2% of the sales force actually accomplished that. And in the state of Delaware at the time, I believe I was the only Black woman in a Cadillac, which is a big deal. And I was, at the top of my national area. But I knew that was a placeholder. That wasn't really what God designed me to do. So in 2007, I have my Britney Spears moment, which I call, the oops, I did it again, where I literally traded one desk for another. I still wasn't living the purpose that God had given me and doing the work that he told me to do, but I was a little bit closer. And so I decided to send my pink Cadillac back to Mary Kay Cosmetics and start the first iteration of what is today Incredible One Enterprises, but we struggled. I chuckle because it was bad. I'm talking about ramen noodles and peanut butter and jelly bad. Like every other day, I was either eating ramen or peanut butter and jelly because that was all we could afford. I burned through the money that I had trying to get the business off the ground and start. It took me 9 months before I made the first dime in the name of my company. So I have 2 anniversaries. I celebrate October 1st because that was the day I woke up and said, I'm starting Incredible One Enterprises today. And I celebrate June 27th because that's when I made the first dime in the company. And during that time, as the money ran out, living on my credit cards, robbing Peter to pay Paul, eventually I came to the end and I couldn't do it anymore. So I had to file bankruptcy. Filed bankruptcy in 2010. I held it off as long as I possibly could. It was discharged. And in that time, I was back at work because I didn't want to live in my car. And I was already eating ramen noodles or peanut butter and jelly. So it's like, how much worse could it get? Well, it would be really bad trying to take a shower on my windshield wiper. So I'm like, okay, let me do what I got to do, humble myself and go back to work. And I went back to a job for 2 years. But I was so clear that it was a layover. I was not going to stay there. I was coming back into entrepreneurship full time, and I was coming back guns a-blazing, money flowing. And so in that 2 years that I worked that job, I allowed the salary to be the foundation that I needed so that all of the rest of the money that I earned in the company, I could reinvest in the company to enhance my skills, get access to the tools and equipment that I needed so that ultimately when I came back into the business full time on January 1st, 2011, I would be unemployable. And we have not looked back. 3 years later, we were doing 7 figures. And today I run an 8-figure company. So it's just, and there was still more bumps and bruises in there. And I'm happy to talk about them if that's the direction you want to go in. But it wasn't, it was definitely not overnight success. It was definitely not sunshine and rainbows. There were lots of clouds, lots of storms, lots of torrential downpours. But I was fully convinced in my own mind that I was supposed to have my own business and it was supposed to make millions. And that's what kept me going in the lean years and the lost years, because the first few years, those are the lost years. We don't talk about them. I just knew like I know my name that I am greatness, and greatness was going to be associated with me, not for the sake of my ego, but for the sake of being demonstrative of what's possible for other people.
What's interesting about your story, and it is a common theme that I see with a lot of successful entrepreneurs I sit down with, to the average person, you would think most people would go to entrepreneurship because they were bad employees or they struggled in corporate America or with 9-to-5s. But most of the entrepreneurs that I've sat down with, like yourself, actually excelled, right? They did very, very well. So you talked about your success when you first came into corporate America, your success when you first came into Mary Kay. And despite the success you were having, especially considering the background you came from, you would think for most people who came from where you came from that would have gotten to that success, they're like, all right, we're good. I'm on cruise control from now to the end of time. Not only do you say this isn't it, you then go into starting your first business and you are just, I mean, you're in the mud, right? Like you're
I'm in the gutter.
Yeah, you're in the gutter, sewer, underground, like just working through it. But at no point in time when you were talking about going through that, did you ever say like, I'm not supposed to be here? It's almost like for you, even in the midst of the storm, you knew as clear as day, like I'm supposed to be here. You knew when you had to go back to work to give yourself the financial ground again. This is cool. I know I'm gonna excel here again, but this is not where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to come back here. Why were you so sure and convinced, despite the success you were having in corporate and in the 9-to-5 space, and the lack of success you were having in entrepreneurship, that you were being called to be in business?
Yeah, because before I was formed in my mother's womb, God knew me and approved me.
Mm.
He called me prophet and he gave me a message to share with the nation. And as I started to build a relationship with God for myself, not on the back of my Aunt Ida and my grandma, like me getting to know him for myself and really coming face to face with what his word says and every promise that he made me, I believed it. I was too dumb to doubt that it wasn't true, that I was created in his image and likeness, and therefore I had power, authority, and dominion over everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's everything. And so, I mean, what else is there to do? Like, it's either you trust him or you don't.
Yeah.
You believe it or you don't. And I chose to trust him and to believe it. And, you know, even in periods like this, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, right? Like right now, entrepreneurs who started their businesses at the height of COVID-19 are like, they don't know what in the world is going on because we're in a different market right now, right? I mean, I've been in business for 18 years, so I've seen this several times, and this isn't anything new to me. And as a result of all of that and who God is, I don't let the temporary dips in revenue or the market sway who God told me that I am. Like, I am not fair weather, right? I'm truly ride or die, right? And I know who I am. I know what I am capable of, and I'm always willing to bet on me. From yay high to a grasshopper, from my mom didn't even know she was carrying me and was getting high, and I was born premature, and the doctor said she's probably going to be born with birth defects. This was 1975, where all of the information we have today about doing drugs when you're pregnant wasn't preeminent, and all of the data wasn't available, but there were beginning to be underpinnings and whispers of what might happen to a fetus at that particular point in time. And so speculatively, the doctor said she's probably never going to know life like most know life. But there has never been anything cognitively wrong with me. When you come against those odds, you are too dumb to doubt that anything you attempt to do isn't going to work. And not to say that that doesn't mean that it's going to all be, you know, sunshine and rainbows. No one goes to bed a blunder and wakes up a wonder. Everybody has a journey and a process. And my journey and my process is to define the success clues and the missteps so that I can help people to avoid some of the pits I fell in on my way to the promised land, right? Like, I just truly believe that with all that I am, that everything I've been through, everything that I experienced is to be a lesson for someone else so that they can get there too, because God is no respecter of persons. And if he can do it for Darnyelle Antoinette, born in the projects to crack-addicted parents, or they weren't crack-addicted in 1975, so you know what I'm saying. But like, if he can do it for me, then I know good and well he can do it for you.
You talked about we talked about that transition and that journey. You mentioned, of course, having to file for bankruptcy.
Mhm.
I want to confirm with you. I read somewhere, I don't know if this is, but I have you sitting here so you can confirm.
Okay.
Is it true that you went into over $250,000 in
It
credit
is
card
very
debt?
true.
I want over $250,000, not like $10,000, not 20,000.
No, $250,000.
If you don't mind me asking, how?
Okay, so yeah, so okay, it's not my proudest moment.
Mhm.
Let's just say that first and foremost.
Mhm.
If you've ever heard the saying, looking for love in all the wrong places,
Mhm.
like that flowered my young adulthood.
Mm.
So I've already expressed I'm one of seven. What I didn't express yet is that my mom went to jail during my 8th birthday party. And so I had significant abandonment issues. And therefore, I felt like I was unlovable. Like the only way for people to love me was for me to give to them. And so as I grew up, went to college, I remember, I'll never forget a friend freshman year saying a credit card is layaway you get to take home. Your girl knows about layaway, okay? So that was the beginning of it, right? And just taking my friends on a vacation here,
Hey.
paying your electric bill there.
Mhm.
And the crazy thing, Marvin, is that it wasn't like I had Gucci and Prada. Like I wish I had a whole bunch of name brands and purple labels to show for the $250,000. No, it was literally just helping other people, which I think is admirable, right? And it's not understanding, like just not understanding how it all works because I was not financially literate, like most of us are not. I think it is a disservice that in most states, financial literacy is not taught to children, right? I think it is a disservice. And so it just all added up. And you know how credit cards are. And I think they're probably still this way now. I do still use credit cards because I like to get my points, but I pay the balance when the bill comes. And if I can't afford to pay the bill when it comes, then I'm not getting it. But back then, like, you start with a $500 credit line and then you get it up. And then soon as you need more money, what do? They give you a credit line increase. So we spend at the level that we've been given, right? And so without even realizing it, every time you put the card in the machine, it adds up. And so over time, it accumulated to $250,000. Now, this was from 19 years old up until 34 years old. I filed bankruptcy at 35, right? So this is a span of time of making minimum payments.
Yeah.
Right? So if it was a credit card that had a $25 minimum payment, that's what your girl was paying because it's layaway you get to take home, right? I realize as I'm saying this, let me talk to the people. I realize as I'm saying this, I probably sound really uneducated. And I'm saying it the way that I felt it then because I was really uneducated. That's not who I am today. And at that particular point in time, that was all that I knew. And many of us, that is the way that we live. That is the way that we operate. And once you know better, Dr. Maya Angelou says, we do better. So your girl learned better. Now, the best thing that ever happened to me, Marvin, is that when I filed bankruptcy, the bankruptcy trustee required that I take a financial literacy course.
Okay.
That is a defining moment. That is a stake in the road, a fork in the road, where I got to make a different decision and it changed everything. I think about that Robert Frost poem, two roads diverge in the wood, and I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference. That made the difference. And I think he probably did it because he's like, I do not want to see this girl back in my bankruptcy court again. But having to take that financial literacy course, I understood and was taught, the everyday mechanics of money. But I was also taught the neuroscience and the spirituality of money. And because I got a well-versed education in financial literacy, within a year, I was a net worth millionaire. Within 7 years, I had an 8-figure net worth. So as the old mothers would say in the church, I'm not taking nothing from my journey because I needed all of those things to happen
Right.
in order to be here today as an example of what is possible for others if they're willing to do the work on themselves. Now, I had to do a lot of work, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of understanding how I was taught to relate to money, dealing with a lot of the financial trauma and guilt associated with money, and replacing that with a healthy, viable relationship with money in order to be able to get to the space where today I have the capacity to hold and receive at a level that is far greater than most people probably could hold or receive.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you talked about how important that financial literacy class was? Would you say that was the moment, looking back, that was a moment where it all started to click for you? Was there another moment that you could harp back to that things started to finally go on an upward trajectory as you were navigating your journey of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, specifically as it pertains to money and financial wellness and wholeness, that was the defining moment. I've had many defining moments over the years, but specifically to change the trajectory of where I am from a financial standpoint, absolutely.
Got you. I have this book here that we have here, the Move to Millions book written by you, The Proven Framework to Become a $1 Million CEO with Grace and Ease Instead of Hustle and Grind. Wait, Josh, this is my camera right here. Bong, make sure you get your copy as well. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
This framework here. Before we talk about what it is, how did the Move to Millions framework come about?
Oh, I love this question. So I got my business to 7 figures the very first time in 2014. It kind of happened by accident. And what that means is it absolutely happened by accident. In 3 days, I generated $1.3 million. And that year, I generated $1.8 million. And all of a sudden, I was a 7-figure business. I was a 7-figure business without infrastructure to sustain a 7-figure business. I was a 7-figure business without the financial ineptitude of what that meant. So I ended up paying $400,000 in taxes. I didn't know what I didn't know. And the coaches and mentors that I had at the time didn't prepare me. And so anyway, I did 7 figures and I hated it. It was everything Biggie said it would be. It was more money and it was more problems. And I didn't want it. Now I'm trying to reconcile the fact that I know that God said you are called to have millions. And I have millions. And I hate it. But God said you are called to have it. And I have the Moses anointing. So I'm to lead other people to it as well. Well, I had to figure out how to have a 7-figure business that didn't swallow me whole. That really gave me the freedom and the opportunity and the ability to make choices that would allow me to live better and experience better. Because that's not what happened to me when I crossed 7 figures. It was a really good paying job. I was hustling. What's that song? Every day I'm hustling. Every day I was hustling. And I hated it. My body was breaking down. I gained a ridiculous amount of weight. I was porky at best. And I was not happy. And I couldn't believe, I would not allow myself to believe that I could have the money and everything else fall apart. I believed, I knew it invariably, and I wanted to prove it to myself that I didn't have to choose, that I could love God and make millions of dollars at the same time. And I could do it in a way that honored me without me having to sacrifice, downplay, or dismiss the most important parts of me. It took me about 18 months. So I got to 7 figures, hated it, right? Was living color, hated it. Gave it up, was like, y'all can have this 7-figure business. Went back to like a mid 6-figure business. And when I went back, I got in the lab. And I had to figure out how to get back to 7 figures, but to do it in a way that didn't require hustle or grind or me to have to sacrifice. It took me about 18 months to figure out, hence the method. And then I started taking other people on the journey. So to date, 82, since 2021, 82 people we've helped generate a 7-figure business sustainably following this methodology.
What is the methodology? Break that down.
Yeah, so there are 7 pillars. In the book, there are 5. We expanded out the 5th. So the original 5 pillars were strategy optimization, sales infrastructure solidification, systems and operational efficiency, support team alignment, and success mindset. Success mindset is vast. There's so many things we could talk about there. So we expanded that out from 1 pillar into 3. So now it's success mindset, soul leadership, and self-care. So if you ask me, these 7 it's the winning formula to be able to have a business that generates at this level predictably, sustainably, without you having to sell your soul in the process. So that is the method. And I mean, I could go further and define each of the pillars if you want, or we can stop right there.
Let's go pillar by pillar, because
Okay.
I have the pillars in front of me right now.
Okay.
And I want to start first with strategy, and this will be helpful for me because I'm not the best with strategy. So I'm sure I'll be able to learn something. But when we talk about strategy within the Move to Millions framework, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen in business owners that you coach when it comes to strategy, and how does the Move to Millions framework fix it?
Yeah. So each of the 7 pillars has 10 levers.
Okay.
And I'm not going to be able to tell you all of them off
Right.
the top of my head, just telling you that up
Yeah.
front. But here's what I will say for strategy specifically. Here we're talking about, it's the P's, right? So who is your pinnacle client? It's the person that you can solve a problem for. What is the problem you solve for them? And then how do you package the solution to that problem? How do you package it? How do you price it? How do you promote it? How do you position it? How do you plan for it? Like all of the things that go into determine whether you're going to do a challenge or a webinar, right? And everything in between, from client to them signing a contract, everything that goes into it is inside of that strategy, including your profitability. Now, most people, when they set their prices, they price by community, right? They look at what's happening out in the world, what other people are charging, and then they say, okay, that's what I'll charge. Well, that's the biggest mistake you could ever make. Because what you don't know when you look at someone else's price is if they understand all of the mechanics of what goes into being profitable. Most people define profit as what's left over after you taken in revenue and paid your expenses. Whereas what we need to do is we need to define profit as the amount that you put aside from the beginning that allows you to get ahead and create investment opportunities to multiply your money. See, wealthy people understand that money's purpose is to create more money for them. Middle-class people believe that money's purpose is to give them good credit so that they can live beyond their means, whereas poor people believe that money's purpose is for them to just pay their bills. So as a wealthy person, I don't use my money. So the reason I still use credit cards as an example, I float my money. Why would I give you, let's say I want to buy something from you that's $10,000. Why would I give you $10,000 and only get what you want to give me for it? When, if I put that $10,000 on a credit card, I'm going to get points that I can use to fly first class around the world and do all of these other things and get 30 days of my money being in an investment account, making me more money before I have to pay that bill. So I charge something for $10,000 from you. Over the course of that 30 days, that $10,000 became $12,000. I have $2,000 extra dollars after I pay you. See, I learned that through understanding financial literacy and how money works. I didn't know that before, right? But that's an example. So anyway, I went off on a little tangent. But when we're talking about strategy, we're talking about the mechanism that you are going to utilize in order to create predictability within your business for a set of systems that are going to allow you to accelerate your results and your revenue. That's what we're looking at when we talk about strategy.
You said something interesting when you talked about pricing, and that like one of the bigger mistakes you see certain entrepreneurs make, it's almost like copy and paste, right? So if I am in this industry and 5 other people are in my industry and they charge this much for X product, I didn't even know what product I was going to sell, but because I'm just trying to get to the money, not only am I going to sell the exact same product you guys are selling, but I'm going to price it the same. But to your point, there's so many logistics that goes into price,
right,
that they may not even be taken into consideration, and their competitors may not be taken into consideration.
Correct.
Whole time you think they're crushing it, but in actuality they're in the red. Now
Right.
you're in the red
Right.
because you was over here copy and paste in business instead
Correct.
of being strategic. Have you seen that that's also been a reoccurring theme with a lot of the business owners you work with within this framework, and that like, hey, when we talk about strategy, I need you guys to get out of the copy and paste mindset. I'm gonna just do what everyone else is doing and get very clear about the why behind every nook and cranny of your business.
Absolutely. And here's an example that's not in entrepreneurship. Let's talk about cars for a second.
Let's do it.
An automobile, any automobile, a Kia, a Yugo, remember Yugo? a Yugo, a Maserati, a Bentley, they all do the same thing, right? We put we don't put the key in the ignition anymore. We push the little button. Somebody's still putting the key in the ignition, no shade, right? But we push the little button. If there's gas in the car is charged, we can go. But right now on the road, there's a Kia driving next to a Honda, driving next to a BMW, driving next to a Maserati, driving next to a Bentley, driving next to a Bugatti. They all technically do the same thing, but they are not in the same price point.
Right.
So right now, I could decide I want to go on a shopping spree, and I could go to Macy's or I could go to Nordstrom. The experience and the price point in each location is going to be different. So the biggest mistake we make when we price by community or we just copy and paste is we are making an assumption in the marketplace, or we are positioning ourselves as an assumption in the marketplace that we are just like insert the name of your competitor. Whereas what we have to understand is that consumers are programmed to notice differences. And so if you would just position yourself differently, you can go from being the Kia to the Bugatti. And so that's strategy. Understanding your market, understanding where in the market you want to sit, understanding the way that your ideal client thinks, what they hold to be true, the beliefs that they are trying to protect with everything that they believe, the fears that they have that influence the way that they spend. You got to get up in and through the mind of your client. The only thing you might not know is what color underwear they have on, but you need to know everything else if you want a strategy that's going to actually take you to the point where your business can generate at a level that allows you to make millions a year. And so that's what we really get into. And so what we find when a client comes and work with us, they will have pieces of the strategy, but sometimes the pieces are not fitting together in a way that is actually going to get them to where they want to go. And strategy is only one part of it, right? Like it's the part where most people put their dominant energy on the strategy, but all the strategies work. Right? I like flippantly a minute ago talked about a challenge versus a webinar. Like no matter which of all the ways you could launch an event, because you have to have a launch if you want to sell a product, just putting it on your website is not smart, because how would they know to go to your website and find your product, right? So if you're having a launch event, all of the various ways you could launch, they all work. You've got to know which one works for your client at your price point to determine which one is going to work for you. That's strategy.
What if the next time you heard from the banks, it was a $50,000 to $100,000 approval letter instead of another denial? You've been putting in the work, balancing your job, your business, and your family responsibilities. But here's the truth that most entrepreneurs never hear. Hard work alone is not enough to get the banks to say yes. Banks approve entrepreneurs who are structured the right way, and that's the missing piece that's been holding you back all along. We've seen it over and over again. Entrepreneurs who came to us who were stuck getting denial after denial got access to the right system, structure, and strategy that unlocked $50,000, $75,000, and even $100,000 credit approvals. And here's the real cost of waiting. Every month you go without having access to capital is another month where your opportunities are slipping into another business's hands. That's why we created the Fast Track to Capital, a free masterclass where we break down the exact steps needed to make yourself look fundable to banks so that you can access the capital needed to scale your business. We only do this training a limited amount of times per year, so if you're ready to secure your spot, click the link above or below this video so that you don't go another year without having the access to capital that your business needs.
That's a perfect segue to the next pillar that I have in front of me here. You mentioned sales, and we kind of started to touch on it a little bit in terms of pricing. So how within this framework do you help coaches and business owners, entrepreneurs who struggle to charge what they're worth?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm so glad you said it just like that, because that burns my biscuits.
Okay.
Okay.
Burns my biscuits.
You cannot charge what you're worth, Marvin. God created you.
Okay.
And he made you ridiculous and amazing, and no one could afford you.
Okay.
So it's not, and the biggest mistake we make is when we make our identity about money.
Okay.
So it's not about charging what you're worth. It is about charging based on the value associated with the solution you bring to the table for the person who's been unsuccessful at solving that problem on their own. There's a difference.
Break it down.
Because no one could afford me if I was charging my worth. I would be like $1 billion an hour and have no clients, right? So we have to learn how to separate our service from our identity. You are priceless, but your work is not. And so that's a common misconception. And it's rooted in the way you see money. And I believe that the way you see money is about the way you see yourself and the way that you were raised and what you were taught and what you caught from those who were raising you as it pertains to money. And it is underscoring everything you do as an entrepreneur in your business. That is why I spend so much time working with our clients on the money piece, which we cover in Success Mindset. That particular pillar is money consciousness and all of that stuff. But it is an important part of the process because if you see money as being tied to your identity and you don't feel worthy, you have imposter syndrome, then you're going to undercharge for your service. And you'll probably even find people who will pay it. And then you'll overwork and become resentful, which continues to stifle the amount of money that flows in your direction because money flows away from those who feel that there's a shortage of it. And the way you price is most often associated with what you haven't healed yet around money.
Have you found that that's also connected to another reason why? Because there are also, and I'm sure you've seen it, I'm sure there are business owners that come to you and they pretty much give you their business on a silver platter and you're going over everything with them. And price, for example, we talked about how to figure out pricing, but then you have certain business owners that they haven't increased their prices for years, right? They're the best at what they do and they're making pennies on a dollar because they're drastically undercharging themselves and they know they want to increase price, but there's so much fear and a scarcity mindset that's tied around it. Have you seen that as a common theme as well with a lot of the business owners you're dealing with?
I mean, money, the way you see money, the way you relate to money, what you think about money, the undercurrent of money, the subconscious of money, all of those things underplay. And there are people who, charge high-end prices and still fear or don't feel safe with money. So just because you can make it, because this is not about making money. We all know how to make it, right? It's about keeping it, multiplying it, and feeling worthy of it. So when we go back to Darnyelle, how in the world did you have $250,000 in credit card debt? I did not feel safe with money. I abused it because I felt that it was to be abused because that's what I was taught around it. And that's why I made really not smart decisions as it pertained to money. That added up to me potentially having to owe people $250,000 for things that I no longer even had, right? It's because of the way that I saw myself at that point in time. And money is, I believe, the easiest thing to abuse because it's one of the most superfluous resources in the world. It's always available. It's here right now. It never stops flowing. And if you don't understand how to relate to it, it will impact your sales. Now, inside of the sales infrastructure solidification pillar, what we're really getting at here is to teach clients how to go from selling one-to-one to sell one-to-many. Because that's when you actually get to the point where you could scale your business. I believe scaling is misused and misunderstood in the marketplace. People think scaling is about speed, but scaling is actually the act of multiplying, duplicating, and replicating a series of systems and strategies in order to increase revenue and results. So most people who say they're scaling don't even have anything yet that they've proven works that they should be trying to multiply, duplicate, or replicate. But they call it scaling because that's the buzzword of the industry. If you want to be able to sell $1 million or more in a year, you cannot be selling one person at a time. You've got to be selling multiple people at a time, and you need systems and automation to be able to do that. So that's what we uncover for every client. So whether you work business to consumer, business to business, or business to government, we identify ways for you to be able to sell one to many so that we can help you to increase your sales without having to increase your sales output. And so that's where we get to have some fun in that particular pillar.
You said so much there. I want to talk to one of the words you said, which is consequentially is actually one of the other pillars where you talked about systems. I'm sure you've also heard as well that systems is an acronym for save yourself time, energy, and money. Within this framework, how true have you found that to be in terms of, once again, creating a business that's not only sustainable, but scalable? And what are the systems we're putting in place to go ahead and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I had not heard save yourself time,
Okay,
energy,
well,
and money.
there
I
you
had
go.
never heard that, but I like it. I
Okay.
love it. So when it comes to systems, specifically in this pillar, there are 7 core systems that every business needs to have. You need to have a general operations management system. You need to have a financial management system, a legal management system, a client management system, a marketing management, a sales management, and a talent management system. A system is really a series of processes, process flows, and procedures for every core function that needs to be done within your organization. Some of those things you'll be able to automate, right? So often when we say systems, people think we're only talking about software, but we're also talking about the standard operating procedures. Like, what is the process that someone follows step by step to produce the same result every time it's time to do something?
Yeah.
Often, once we've created our SOPs, we can find automation opportunities. We call those SAPs, standard automation procedures, that we can actually leverage that saves us that time, energy, and money that you were talking about in that beautiful little acronym for systems. And so as you look at the 7 areas of your business and you're looking at what are the things we do every single day that we need to do in order to make our success predictable? How can we align the processes, the process flows, and the procedures that we follow in each of these areas so that they can begin to do some of this work without us having to be present? Now, AI is going to make a lot of that easy and easier for many people that have a firm understanding. AI is only going to work as well as you know how to get it to work, right? So based on what you feed it, how you prime it and prompt it, it will then produce for you a lot of the things that will help to save you time and energy as you are looking for areas of replication inside of your business. And so in systems, we're really looking at, especially when you don't have a lot of team members, like physical FTE team members, full-time equivalent team members, we are making sure that we're looking for those opportunities to have automation and software take the place of some of the people so that we don't miss core efficiencies just because we don't have enough people on the seats in the bus, right? There are implications as to what could either help or hinder your ability to build out a team. Now, most people aren't building a team because they're afraid of payroll, which is fear related to what? Money. It all comes back to money, right? But building a team, when you think about scaling, again, recognizing that it's multiplying, duplicating, and replicating, you can really only scale 2 ways: with systems or support. Some things you can systematize, some things you need to hand off to someone else. Right? I get to be here having this conversation with you right now because I've got employees who are back in their homes and their respective offices doing the work that I'm not doing because I'm here with you.
Right.
That's scaling. Right? So that's what we want to help them to understand. And it's different, right? Although the methodology is corporate, the way that we employ it with the client is customized. So we're looking at your individual business and finding the way to make the method work for you so that it can be sustainable, it can be predictable, and you actually feel good while you're doing it, because that's an important part of the process as well.
When you talk about the support pillar of Move to Millions, is that support from the standpoint of coaching and mentorship, or support more from the standpoint of, I think you just touched on it, but is it more
Yeah, it's
on the
both.
Break that down.
So it's
for me.
all support team, right? So anyone that you need helping you. So if you're hiring team, hiring based on your core values, like, do you even have them, right? Have you established a culture? We find that solopreneurs don't think about culture because it's just them.
Yeah.
But if you don't think about culture in advance, think about Stephen Covey and his begin with the end in mind. If you don't think about that from the onset of starting your business, by the time you start bringing on a team, you'll have pandemonium.
Yeah.
Right? So it is how you develop them. If you're going to take the time to hire someone, but you're not going to develop them, you just wasted your money. because they need to be developed in order to produce at the level that is going to give you the result that you want, as well as recognizing when you do need to employ consultants or mentors that can support you on the journey. So it is full circle and includes both.
Why do you think there are certain entrepreneurs that have such a hard time releasing this vice grip that they have on their business to say, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to be the salesperson. I'm going to be the marketing person. I'm going to be operations and customer service. What have you seen be the common thread for a lot of the entrepreneurs that struggle with that?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this question this way. So there's nothing wrong with that when you're starting. Because I actually believe in your first year of business, you should be doing everything. How else are you going to create SOPs?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. But there comes a time, if you want to grow, if you want to eventually put yourself in position to scale, that you've got to employ other people. Other people have to participate in this. So why is this a big thing? I think it comes down to a lot. A lot of people have corporate trauma. They were in corporate America, and maybe in corporate America, they managed the efforts of others. And in managing the efforts of others, it was their biggest nightmare. And they don't ever want to do that again. I know that was my story when I first left corporate. I was like, I am never having a team, because it was punishment to have a team of people that I had to manage their efforts. And so we take that, we internalize that, and then we bring it into our own business. And we have this, it's in my opinion, most things either come back to the way you see yourself and money, or just the way you see yourself. It's an identity marker. And if I hold the belief that if I want it done right, I have to do it myself, no matter how that message was downloaded into me, then I'm going to hold that belief, and that belief is going to kill me. It is literally going to suck the life out of all of the energy I had when I started my business if I feel like I can be the only one who does it. And listen, I am a recovering graduate from If You Want Something Done Right, Do It Yourself University, right? I have sent them back their diploma and told them not to call me no more for alumni donations. But I grew up that way because that's what I used to hear my mom say all the time. If I want something done right, I got to do it myself. It's time for me to make my bed, and I don't make it the way she wants it made. I should have just done it myself. So what do we internalize? What plays over and over again? Just do it yourself. Yeah. And we have this fear of payroll, right? We don't want to pay anyone else to do things that we could do and we could probably do better. So we take it all on. We're self-employed. We've got this maybe good paying job, but really not for the number of hours we work. If we take when most people take home and we divide it by the number of hours we work, we're making like $10 an hour, if that, right? But that's just, it's part of the stories that we tell ourselves, and those are the things that hold us back.
This now perfectly for me segues into the next pillar, which seems like it's kind of shown itself in all the pillars, which is like mindset. I heard Jim Rohn say that the most successful people in the world aren't the most successful because they work harder than everyone else. They just think differently than everyone else, which for me ties to mindset. When I first got into entrepreneurship, whenever I would go to conferences and events and mentorships, that was always the opening thing. Mindset. And when I was earlier on in my entrepreneurial journey, because I was so young and ignorant, I was just like, man, all this mindset talk. Like, let's just get to the money. Like,
nobody thinks they have a mindset issue.
And usually, if you don't think you have a mindset issue,
that's the first clue that you do. 95% of your success is tied to the 6 inches in between your ears.
Unpack that, because once again, you work with business owners at every level, right? The 6-figure level, 7-figure level, and beyond. What have you seen been the biggest mindset shift, whether it's around business or just money in general, that most business owners need to make that's keeping them from growing their business?
Oh, I love this question. First thing that popped into my head is it gets to be easy. Now, first of all, we live here in the United States. We live in a country that was built on hard work. And we are praised for hard work. Like, think about the last time you did something really, really amazing in your life and people celebrated you. What did they say? I'm so proud of you. You worked so hard, right? So we expect to work hard because we believe that when we work hard, we deserve the reward of working hard. Yeah. So that's the biggest mindset. And here's the thing, and we've all heard it, at every level, there's a new devil. It's actually not a new devil. It's the same devil. At every level, it's the same devil. It just shows up differently. Right? And so no matter the client I'm working with, just broke $150,000 a year, just broke $1.5 million a year, just broke $10.5 million a year. It is mindset, and it is the belief that it gets to be easy.
Yeah.
That you don't have to work hard. I have this quote in the book, and the book says, to something it is my quote, and I'm probably not going to say it the way that I wrote it, but the gist of it is this: if you believe that the only way that you can make money is if you work hard, then you will not be able to make money unless you work hard. But the fact of the matter is this: all success, including success financially, is not about effort. It's about embodiment. It's about alignment. It is about realizing that when things line up, you create flow and not friction. But we were all taught and beat, and it was beat into us that you gotta work hard, right? My dad used to say, I have to work twice as hard for half as much, and I better be grateful. And so that's what we break our back on, and that's what we hold. And, we're told that from birth to the age of 7, by the time we're 7, who we are going to be at 40 has been formed. If we do no work on everything that we taught or caught from birth to the age of 7, we are going to grow into a person who replays those limiting belief tapes over and over and over as an adult. And that is when we are told all of those things. And so then we become entrepreneurs who used to work a job where we probably never negotiated our salary and just took the salary they gave us. And then we become entrepreneurs, and we still charge by the hour and we think because we charge more than we made on our job, we're winning, except for we forgot that now we have to pay self-employment tax, which eats up 15.7% of that right off the bat, right? So it all goes back. And the reason why mindset is 95%, or your success is tied to 95% of what's happening right here, is because I can teach you anything, but you will only receive it and anchor into it if you have the capacity to believe that it is actually possible and it gets to be easy.
I'm curious to know, as someone who coaches and works with a lot of entrepreneurs, have you ever had a moment, more specifically recently, where you were coaching someone on something, whether it was a mindset shift they needed to make, and as you were talking to them in real time and subconsciously in your mind, you're like, I said that for you, but like as I think about it, like, damn, I got to look at the woman in the mirror
All the time.
Talk to me about that.
All the time. I forget what the saying is. That which we most need to do, we teach. I think it's something like that, right?
Okay.
And I'm always listening. And it's interesting. I was having a conversation with my leadership team maybe last week or the week before. And I had just gotten off of a coaching call with a client. And I gave her this amazing strategy based on something we used to do back in the day. Now, why we stopped doing it, I have no idea. But we did stop doing it. And it worked like gangbusters for her. And I was like, we need to do that again. Like, why aren't we doing that? So it happens all the time. And the reason why I believe is because when we say it out loud, we're saying it out loud to reinforce and to break up and to create an energetic and frequency elevation for ourselves as much as for who we are working with. The only way you can teach is if you've already done. Otherwise, it's theory. Right? And I'm not a theorist. I don't do theory. So anything I'm ever going to present to someone, I know it works because I've done it myself.
Yep.
Well, in me saying it to you, it has to pass through the filter of my understanding of me hearing it and anchoring it into me. So it creates this ripple and ricochet effect of me getting an understanding and a reminder of maybe something I've forgotten because I'm at this level now instead of still being at this level. And so it can serve as a point to get you back to the basics, because the one thing that almost never changes, no matter how the market changes, are the basics of business.
Yeah.
Right? We're always going to have to be focused on our strategy. We're always going to have to figure out how we're going to get that next sale, right? So
the next pillar that I have in front of me now, these next two is where it gets very interesting.
Okay.
So spiritual grounding. How would you say? Well, first off, I guess before I get to that question, unpack what is spiritual grounding. What does that mean?
Yeah, so the pillar is actually called soul leadership.
Thank you.
And what is in there, spiritual grounding is um, based on the understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Okay.
Now, whether you are, religious, whatever religion or any of that, it doesn't negate the truth.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Inside of us, we hold the answer and the key to everything. In our creation, again, depending upon how you believe we came to be, but in that creation, we were born into bodies, into vessels that self-heal.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you need, you already have in you. So soul leadership is about recognizing the power of your soul and leading from that place.
Mm-hmm.
Allowing it to ground you so that it's not egotistical. It's not flamboyant.
Mm-hmm.
It is anchored in. It is resolute that this is who you are. And because of who you are, the power that you wield makes all of the things that you desire possible. The desire itself in you is not your original construct.
Mm.
I believe it was given to you by your creator. I love the movie Not Easily Broken. It had Morris Chestnut and Taraji P. Henson. It was like a T.D. Jakes. He was an executive producer. Well, at the end of the movie, as the credits are rolling, Morris Chestnut's voice says, if you want to know the purpose of a thing, consult the maker of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's like recognizing that when you were created, God thought so highly of you that he made you quite capable of all of this greatness and anchoring into it so that you don't experience imposter syndrome, so that you don't allow the fears that pop up, because they will pop up, right? There's a reason God said 365 times in the Bible, do not fear, because it's a natural human element to fear. Although we're only born with two fears, fear is a very real thing. I believe fear is an indication that your next level is present. And so when those fears show up, remember who you are. Like I think about in The Lion King, right? Remember who you are, Simba. Like we have this power. We are these forces of nature. And soul leadership is about understanding and from that place, doing everything that it is that you do.
From your experience, how has getting clearer on soul leadership helped to clarify? Because another thing you deal with in entrepreneurship is shiny object syndrome, right? There's always going to be some new sexy opportunity that comes strolling along your desk.
Yeah.
And there's so many business owners that should be so much farther ahead, and they're not there because they keep jumping from thing to thing to thing. Do you think getting clearer on that assists with knowing like, okay, this looks great, but it's not for me. Like this is not aligned with my purpose and my calling.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. And there are people that are wired that way. We call them path makers. So we have a quiz. It's the Ascension Archetype quiz. It's the Move to Millions. So it tells us how you're divinely wired and where you sabotage and how that impacts your leadership style. And so for path makers, they are visionaries. Visionaries are always given a new idea. And as a fellow visionary, I'm not a path maker in the assessment, but as a visionary, a person who gets lots of big ideas, it's how we're wired. It's who we are. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I think sometimes because of bright, shiny object syndrome and not being able to get things done, we feel like we're broken if we're not actually accomplishing all of the big picture ideas that we get. What that means is you need to be surrounded by people who can take your visions and turn them into the realities that you experience inside of your business. But to answer your question, yes, absolutely. There is, the more grounded you are, the more you know who you are, the more you know that the idea that you have and what you've been given to give on the earth is what you should do, the easier it is to not stray from that idea because you feel resolute, you feel anchored in, you feel confident in what that purpose of your life is and what you should be doing.
It's good. All right. So the last one here, self-care, if I'm not mistaken. This is an interesting one. And I need, this is where you really going to get into it. So self-care is interesting because obviously we are in a day and there are two sides to the coin. There's one side to the coin where there may be some friction that some people who hear this topic and juxtapose it with entrepreneurship may have, because it's like, well, this is entrepreneurship. I'm supposed to be working 20-hour days, no days off, no rest, no. And then there are others that are, you hear all this talk about, for lack of a better term, like the soft girl era and all these different things that are going on, to where it's just like, work 1 to 2 hours on your business. Take the rest of the day for yourself. Do what you have to do. Where does this fall in that spectrum?
Yeah. So when I say self-care, I'm not talking about manis and petties. That's maintenance.
Okay.
That's self-maintenance.
Okay.
Right? Self-care is mental health and well-being.
Okay.
It's diet and exercise, right? It's moving your body, the only body you're going to be given. It's sexual fulfillment so that you can keep your creative juices flowing, figuratively and literally.
So I'll let y'all know it's a family show.
I know, I was about to say.
It's a family show, but it's all right. Keep going.
It is boundary adherence,
right.
Knowing the meaning of the word no. It is taking time for rest and reflection as much as you take time for recreation, right? It is understanding that you are not a one-trick pony. You are not just an entrepreneur who has to work 20. I do not work 20 hours a day. I would not have signed up for entrepreneurship if someone told me I had to work 20 hours a day. Now, sure, have there been days when I worked longer than others? Absolutely. But for me, because I am grounded in taking care of this only one vessel that I have, this happens first. And the question I ask myself every single day is, am I worth 30 minutes? And if I am worth 30 minutes, I am moving my body. Moving my body just 30 minutes a day, it keeps me from being diabetic. It keeps my heart pumping regularly and prevents the likelihood that I will have heart disease. It keeps me mentally astute so that I can think and reason just for 30 minutes a day. And so as a CEO, it's very important because burnout is real. So real. And it is so easy in the grain of we love what we do. Like most of us feel like we're not working, which is why we work 20 hours a day, because it doesn't feel like work, because it's our purpose work and it's what we're designed to do, and it invigorates us and all of that. And you still need to rest. Even Jesus rested. We all have to rest. And rest actually helps you to multiply your revenue. Right? If you put the right systems in place, you can take as many days off as you'd like to be able to take and not have your money interrupted in the process.
Can I unpack this a little bit?
Sure.
This part of the 7 pillars, if I was in your program, we'd probably spend more time here than with all the other ones, because this is something I've struggled with. And for me, I think I struggled with it for so long because of like my introduction to entrepreneurship. So my introduction to entrepreneurship was working with my dad. So my dad had a contracting business. He's a first-generation immigrant from Haiti.
Okay.
And I worked with him for 4 years. So the 4 years that I worked with my dad, because this is my first example of business, I'm like, okay, however he moves, this is what business is.
Yeah.
My pops was working 12, 14, 16-hour days and running around in and out of Home Depot and moving from Lowe's to this hardware store. He's at this part. It's 3:00 in the morning. We working on a boiler. I got school the next day. What are we doing? Like, that was my introduction to entrepreneurship. The only time my dad ever took a day off, because he was a God-fearing man, was on Sundays. Like, that was the one day he didn't play with. Like, I'm going to go to church. I'm going to stay inside the house and read my Bible. But Monday to Saturday, I'm running my body to the ground. So when I stopped working with my dad, and I started my own business, once again, that being my introductory, in my mind, I'm like, that is business. I need to be working 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And it wasn't really until I got in partnership with my current business partner that he started to shift my perspective on that. Because before him, my thought process was, if I want to make millions, if I want to do all these great things in business, if I'm not putting in 12, 14-hour days and working on weekends and slaving myself, then I am not going to get to my dreams and my goals. But to what you just said, and I'm sure you can agree with, what I learned is it was actually counterproductive, because I'm not sure if you ever heard the quote, you know who J. Cole is? He has a lyric that I love where he says, the good news is you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way. So I love that. One of the things I learned from being more conscious of self-care and taking my foot off the gas is, a lot of times it's made me realize, like, oh, I was over here putting 10, 12, 14 hours on the wrong stuff. Oh, I was working on these small ideas that's only going to move the business, one step, 2 step. But that one Sunday I took to kind of just reset and take a step back created a space for ideas to flow and for God to come in and be like, you're not even working on the things I've called you to work on. I need you over here, you over here. And you've been here for the past couple of months. I've been trying to speak to you, but you've been over here running like a chicken with your head cut off. You haven't even created a space for me to come here and talk with you. Now that I got a chance, let me talk to you. You're doing this wrong. You got to stop doing this. I need you to focus on it. And now I'm a lot more and it's still a battle for me. There's some Sundays I get a little itch. I'm like, you should be working right now. But the rest is, in a way, if done right, is productivity. It is work because it creates the foundation for long-term growth. So I just wanted to put that out there because I know that there's someone else that may be watching that struggling with that.
Absolutely. I mean, and here's the thing. When you are working yourself to the bone, you don't have capacity.
Yeah.
And capacity is an essential ingredient for abundance. Abundance of ideas, abundance of money, whatever we want an abundance of, we need capacity to receive it. Well, and it's hard if every inch of you is filled with exhaustion or effort, right? I was in the shower. I don't know, probably 3 years ago now. I was in the shower. I don't know about you, but God really speaks in the shower. I think it's because of the water, the flow, like just the energy.
Okay.
And I heard him clearly say, effort won't make them millions. And I was like, say what now? And he repeated, effort won't make them millions. Embodiment will. And I was like, oh, I got it. I ended up doing a podcast episode on my show because that was like, oh, right. If I be it, I can become it.
Yeah.
Be it, right? When I think about the very first command God gave in Genesis 1:28, before we even had Adam or Eve, after he said, let us make man in our image and likeness, let's give them power, authority, and dominion over all things. He said, be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
Be. The being is what produces the fruit. And if you are being, it will multiply. Embody what it is you desire. If you desire a 7-figure business, and I'm oversimplifying this to make the point, if you desire a 7-figure business, start acting like you have a 7-figure business. I don't mean go, get some money out the bank and make it rain. How will you act? How will you dress? What will you entertain? Who will you spend time with?
Yeah.
Start doing those things, because here's what we know about spiritual and universal law. The Bible says in Matthew 7:7, if you ask, it is given. So if you ask the question, the answer must be given. If you are being the answer, the answer must be given.
Yep.
So if I am being a 7-figure CEO in advance, then invariably, otherwise, God is a liar. 7 figures have to flow in to my life experience because I am operating in the energy of the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just need to be it. And part of that is resting. It is an edict. It is a command that we rest. And there is no prize for overworking except for exhaustion and burnout, and for some people, death.
Come on.
You've seen people post their 50K approvals online, but have you ever wondered why it hasn't happened for you yet? You're clocking in at your 9 to 5, you're building your business after hours, you're even stacking your 401k and setting money aside for investments. So on paper, you're doing all the right things, but here's the problem. Growth feels slower than it should, opportunities keep passing you by because the capital isn't there, and you start wondering if building a real legacy for your family is even possible. It's not about effort or commitment because you've already proven that you have both. The missing piece is having the proper structure. That's why inside of our free masterclass, the Fast Track to Capital, I'm going to show you a step-by-step process on how entrepreneurs just like you are securing $50,000 to $100,000 in capital safely without wasting years on trial and error. So if you want to secure your seat, click the link above or below this video to save your spot, and don't keep grinding without the structure that gets real results.
At this stage, with everything that you've done, what would you say is your North Star at this point? Because you've accomplished so much. You're nearly 2 decades into being an entrepreneur. What is the thing that you are still chasing, or what is the big audacious goal that you're after at this stage of your life?
Yeah, I'm not chasing anything.
Okay.
right? Because I don't have to chase anything. Do I have goals? Absolutely. And I am operating as if those things are already my reality, and I'm watching them come in. I think that we do ourselves a disservice to think that there is an amount of effort that must be expended in order to achieve what it is that we desire. And so I'm not chasing anything. Now, North Star, like, what is my desire? I'm just getting started. I've only scratched the surface. There are more lives to serve and transform. There are more seven-figure CEOs and wealth builders and generational curses to break that I am to be a catalyst to experience. So for me, it's about, more conversations like this, more people learning my name, not because they should know my name, but so that they can understand what the message is that I've been given to share with the world, and in so hearing, actually do something with it, right? I think about that scripture in Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision and make it plain, write it on tablets so that they that read it may run with it. I've written it on a tablet.
Come on.
In the hopes that they that read it will run with it. And so, and then the scripture goes on to say, and wait for it will surely come. And in the waiting, be. So in the waiting, I'm being right now. We're working on building a $100 million portfolio of companies. I'm taking steps because I do believe you do have to move, right? 2/3 of God's name is go. And God will give you more while you're moving than he ever will when you stand still. But you don't have to choose effort over embodiment, and you shouldn't choose effort unless you've embodied. Because if you've embodied it and you take a step, then that is like putting an accelerant on the step that you've taken to get you to the point that you're supposed to be at faster.
Dr. Darnyelle, if I had an offering plate, I'd pass it around right now.
Listen, you can just slide me a little something.
Listen. Because you coming in here, you bringing church, and not even church, you bringing in church. No, but this has been such an enriching and powerful conversation. Good. I know we have to get you out of here, but as we start to close, you talked about the goal of building a $100 million portfolio, if I heard correctly. When you think about your legacy as you are working towards getting there and already operating as if you are there now, what do you hope that entrepreneurs are able to learn from this journey that you're taking them on?
Yeah, that if it can happen for me, it can happen for you. The only limit you have is your mind. That's it. Other than that, there are no limits. If you have the idea, I believe that for every vision that has been dropped, the provision has already been made. So everything that you need to accomplish whatever the vision is that you have, it's already in the earth.
My last question for you. If sitting across from you right now was Darnyelle 10 years into the future, so who you are, but 10 years into the future, and she dropped in and she only had 30 seconds to speak to you, what do you think she would say?
I'm proud of you.
30, that's it. That's all she?
That's it.
Not, hey, by the way, make sure you.
No. Yeah.
Beautiful. Perfectly said. Dr. Darnyelle, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate this conversation. This is one of those, I have to come back and watch this back. This is very enriching for me. Your camera here, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on, and how they can get connected with you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for watching. I pray that you guys something that just stirred a little something in your spirit that will get you into action. And what I'd love to do is offer you a gift. My mom always told me never go anywhere without offering a gift. So if you were to go right now to movetomillionsgifts.com, movetomillionsgifts.com. I've created a special bundle for those of you who enjoy this conversation so much that you want a little bit more Darnyelle in your life. It is my gift and my way of saying thank you for spending time with me today.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you guys as well for tuning into this episode. And if you haven't already, what are you doing? Take a second, take a minute, take an hour out of your day right now to go ahead, hit the like button, show this episode some love, tell a friend to come back and rewatch it again. And as always, I'm your host, Marvin Francois. That is the always incredible Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon. You guys have been good. We've been great. This has been amazing. Thank you all. God bless. And until next time, peace.